That was what I was doing there. It is a pleasure to be here with you on this Wednesday. Wednesday, you say? Why Wednesday? Well, it's because people are making their way towards the Champions League final. We want to get it done. We want to get it boxed off. That chat is on its way to you towards the end of this live and this podcast. We've got some work coming as well. Some fantastic stuff will be making its way around John Gibbons, who's been speaking to the OLSC in Paris, Camilla there, and something on the Manifesto film done by Daniel Draper. That is to come. But today, the Anfield Wrap has decided it will be Divock Origi Day because of everything that the big man has done for us down the year. Well, I'll ask you all for your favourite moments. I've got Emma Sanders, Ian Ryan and Adam Smith. But it is the most unique Liverpool career I can think of, Ian Ryan. Growing up, there was always a lot of chat around David Fairclough. Because of his brilliance against Saint Etienne and the fact that he had, 3 or 4 genuinely excellent seasons with Liverpool. Divock is like David Fairclough times 10. It is the most remarkable Liverpool career. It really is. I struggle to put it into words when I stop to think about it.
Yeah, it is. It is completely remarkable. And I think, I was looking at some of the stats that kind of sit behind kind of Origi's Liverpool career, and I think it's 41 goals in total across the kind of what is it now, 7 years. I think just over half of those come in the league, but that's probably doing it a little bit of disservice to kind of frame it in those terms, because
absolutely
it's the nature of the goals, it's the quality of them as well. It's not just the big moments where he scored really, really important goals. There's so many in there that are just outstanding in terms of a quality finish. And I think sometimes you can try and be a little bit clever about, if you're going to pick a personal favourite or whatever it may be, and you cannot underplay last-minute winners in derby matches, for instance. But when you are scoring goals in Champions League semi-finals that ultimately bring Anfield its greatest ever night in the history of the club, and I refuse to hear any different from that. Some people will have a different view, and they'll talk about Saint Etienne. They might talk about, even Inter Milan in '65 or Chelsea in '05. That Barcelona comeback, which is started by him in the 7th minute, that's when everyone in the crowd turned to each other and went, "It's on. It's absolutely on." And that's all because he is Johnny on the spot. He's in the right place, takes his opportunity, knows where to be. He's a proper centre forward. He's a proper number 9. And then you can get into what he does later on in the game, which is just ridiculous in terms of a quality finish. And then what he goes and does in the final, which is secure Liverpool another European Cup. He goes with our best wishes, Neil. He's had one hell of an impact on this football club, given that he's only made probably just over 100 league appearances, around about 175 appearances in total. But my God, what a player he's been for this football club.
In amongst many strange things, Emma, he disappears off to Wolfsburg for a season on loan. That happens. That's in his career as well. He obviously doesn't come when he's first signed. At this point, still, he's still only 26, I think, right now as well. There's a lot of career left for him, and yet the bulk of it and the bulk of his biggest contributions in football will have come at Liverpool. These are enormous contributions. Even as. So I've got one for you before we do the moments. I've got one for all of you. He scores 2 against Arsenal in that mad 5-5. He scores the goal that makes it 4-4, and then the goal that makes it 5-5, and then he scores a pen in the shootout. And that was just a really weird, wild night at Anfield. And there is Divock to add his own touch to it, Emma. It is just a remarkable set of goals, of moments that he's produced.
Yeah, when you said he was still only 26, I was like, 26? I mean, that in itself is mad, because the things that he's achieved at this football club, and we're talking about Liverpool here. This is a club that has got historic players, historic moments. Some players go throughout their entire careers not even having any of those moments for a club like Liverpool, and he's done it 5, 6, 7 times. And he's done this all before the age of 26. So it's absolutely remarkable what he's managed to achieve at that age and in such a long career at one of the biggest clubs in the world. And yeah, we speak about those moments, but Ian said it. It's not just the fact that he's popped up in a Champions League final, in a Champions League semi-final, in countless Merseyside derbies. It's the fact that he's done it with class as well, and with moments of quality. It's not, yes, there's a classic Jordan Pickford derby goal, which everyone knows about, which is your typical Divock Origi scrappy goal. But then there's also those moments of sheer quality as well. You know, even the corner taken quickly goal, Trent gets all the credit for it, and rightly so. But actually, you look at the reactions from Origi and the way that he manages to turn his body and direct that goal, that is still quality. And that, you know, I think that's something which people sometimes forget about Divock Origi, is that he is a very, very good footballer, and he will be a very good footballer at another club. And I'm sure he's got plenty of big moments to come. But yeah, as Ian said, I mean, he leaves with all of our best wishes, and what a guy, what a guy.
It is so many of those big moments at crunch times. Adam Smith, he scored his variety of goals. He scored 3 against Wolves, 3 against Southampton, 3 against Arsenal, 3 against West Ham, 2 against Arsenal, 2 against Norwich, etc., etc. I could go on. The point of this is he scored 6 against Everton. And, you know, that again has felt like a thing. The worst thing that happens to him in his career, arguably so far for Liverpool, other than that season at Wolfsburg, which feels as though it was deeply unpleasant. The worst thing that happens to him for his career so far has been the injury against Everton. And yet, my God, he has had his revenge on them.
Yeah, I think, was it you that said, I can't remember if it was in a show or off, you know, out of the show, but I'm not saying anything that you'll be annoyed as public. I think you said that, you know, you had a theory that Funes Mori was a time traveller come back to stop Divock Origi doing what he was going to do to them in the future, which I think is a really great way of thinking about it, because he's just, like, he's absolutely terrorised them. Like, for, you know, if you consider, like, obviously, Rush will always and forever go down in the record books, you know, for what he did to Everton. But Divock Origi has just done it every single time. And, you know, I think the Anfield Wrap accounts tweeted before, of course, his last goal for the club was against Everton. Of course it was, you know, and actually, I always thought that this was, I said to Stu Wright when I saw him a while ago, I was convinced that Everton would go down this season because we knew Divock Origi was leaving. Almost like he was going, well, my work's done, so I'll see you all later. Like, he just seems to have taken it really personally that they exist, and you know, who can't get behind that as a theory?
I mean, this is you know, it is a massive part of this. The other part of this as well, Ian, is of all of his goals, he scored 15 of them. They're all come from open play playing for Liverpool, and he scored 15 of them. 15 of them in the last 15 minutes of matches. You know, that is, again, the calm he's got. I think it could go really well for him at AC Milan, and we obviously all hope that it does, if that is indeed where he ends up. One of the reasons why is he's got all this big experience, this big game experience. But I think the other thing that he's shown all the way through is remarkable temperament in key moments. And that's why I think there's every chance that, you know, that AC Milan are maybe getting if it is them, and as I say, I do hope it is, are maybe getting a slightly better player, a slightly more well-rounded player than they might expect, but also a player who you can call upon when you need him, a player who will be there when it's required to do the decent thing.
Yeah, when you talk about, you know, temperament and stuff, and the ability to remain calm in big moments, you know, that goal against Barcelona, the second one, which Emma kind of talked about in terms of Trent gets a lot of the credit, understandably so. To remain as calm as that and to finish it the way he does, it's such an underrated finish. There's very few people, I think, in the ground that night. I'm talking about players here who can take that as well as he takes that in that moment, with all the pressure that surrounds that. You know, Liverpool have just got back into the game, and it's just a huge moment, and he just takes it with just such calmness. And as I say, he's got that ability to do that. And I hope he does end up at somewhere like AC Milan, you know, recently crowned Italian champions. You know, they have got a couple of aging forwards there in Ibrahimovic and Giroud, who have contributed this season, but are coming towards the end of their careers, you would think. So it does kind of make sense if it's somewhere like that. And I think, you know, I described Origi before. I said, you know, what a player he's been for this club. And he has, in terms of those moments. I think sometimes, if we're being really honest, there's times where you maybe wouldn't want to see him starting games because the way Liverpool play, it would then maybe stutter a little bit when it got to him because he's a different type of footballer. But that doesn't mean there's not a place for a Divock Origi somewhere where he can add loads and loads of value, still score big goals, still be a headline maker, and still have one hell of a career. And the fact that he is still only 26 it's a bit mind-blowing, to be honest, because it does feel like he's been around for ages. So all what I've said there contributes to him being not only a fantastic footballer, but also, you know, he's been a fantastic man for the club and for the city with the stuff that he's done outside of football. We'll be sad to see him go, Neil, but it's probably the right thing because he doesn't deserve just to be getting minutes here and there. He deserves to be someone who contributes a lot more, and I feel he can do that given the right platform and the right stage.
He scored big goals for the manager, Emma. And what I mean on this is we sort of, because he was bought under Rodgers, he's not bought by Jurgen Klopp. But for instance, the goal where the manager takes the players to the Kop in the December of 2015 against West Bromwich Albion, the deflected goal, the 97th minute goal, is Divock Origi's goal. Origi scores on both legs later in the season against Borussia Dortmund. He scores against Everton in that big 4-0, and that's where he gets the injury. Even the year after, he scores a big goal against Sunderland as we're pushing to get Champions League qualification, even though he's not very much involved. You know, you can sort of go on through this, and then you've got the 18-19 run where he only gets 7 goals over the course of the season. But there's only really 2 of them that don't feel like, you know, there's only a goal against Wolves and a goal against Watford that don't feel epoch defining. Everton, Newcastle, or Barcelona, Brace and Tottenham. He's been with, it's mad, isn't it? You know, he's been with the manager through all of these moments in all of these ways, all of these like life-defining things for the Liverpool manager, I'd say, career-defining things. Divock Origi has been there to help him out when he's needed him.
Yeah, you know what? It's actually an interesting point because I hadn't really thought about the fact that, you know, he came under Brendan Rodgers, because when you sit down and think about it, there's not many players in world football, certainly, that would be happy to be part of a squad for as long as Origi has and be, you know, 4th, 5th choice really behind that front three. And as you know, as Ian says, a very, very different type of footballer to the one that Jurgen Klopp quite obviously wants to play with. So, you know, you look at someone like Divock Origi and a manager like Jurgen Klopp and think, how are the two so aligned? But as you say, he's won him over essentially with those big moments and those big goals. And Jurgen Klopp knows that, look, if he needs to go to plan B, plan C, whatever plan it is, to get that crucial goal, to bring someone on to make a difference in the last 10, 15 minutes, to keep their cool, to come up with those moments of quality. Origi showed him within the first 6 months of his Liverpool career that he was the guy that Klopp could turn to for that. And I think that's so invaluable. And that's something, as like I say, not many footballers can give. And I think that's something that Origi, wherever he goes next, he almost doesn't have to prove that to the next manager, because they've seen it countless times. You know, it's not just like he's done it for one manager in a small club. He's done it on the biggest stages in club football for over 7 years now, for one of the biggest managers in club football. So, you know, if you can get someone like Jurgen Klopp to trust you in a squad where there's Roberto Firmino, Diogo Jota, Luis Diaz, Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, the list goes on, then yeah, anyone can trust you.
Anyone indeed can. Adam, last word for you on the man himself. Well, I'll ask you all to nominate your favourite, just your favourite Divock Origi goal and moment. I think Ian's going to very much commit to those Champions League ones. What are you going for, Adam?
Yeah, well, mine's the Champions League final, and the reason why is because it was I think it was the moment where I got a bit of enlightenment over Origi, because I think I was kind of done with him. I was done with him a couple of seasons ago, to be honest with you. And I think that when I've sat and thought about it, I've thought, actually, he's not the player I want him to be. So I agree with what Ian said before, that I think a lot of the time the attacks will slow down with him. The attacks will die with him when he's kind of asked to play in the way that Salah and Mane, etc., can play. That's not who he is. Who he is a player who doesn't let the big occasion, the place out in that Champions League final. Let's make no mistake, he was abysmal. I don't think he completed a pass. He barely had a touch. He was woeful. But it just didn't matter to him. I think if Salah had come on and done what Origi had done, I don't think Salah gets the goal that Origi gets, because I think he's too in his own head. Whereas Divock Origi is just a player who goes, well, that's all gone. Doesn't matter. That's happened now. It's fine. And he lets it go. And I think that Champions League final goal is the perfect summation of who he is as a person, as a player, that he's just able to, on the biggest of occasions when everyone else is really tense, just able to go, well, I'll just score, and then that'll sort it all out. And that's a quality that not a lot of players have, even the very best in the world, and it makes a big difference. So for me, that's the one.
Ian?
I mean, I think the Champions League final goal is probably, for me, the right answer, but I will just kind of give a nod to that first one against Barcelona, because that's the one that made the impossible seem possible. So it's such a significant goal. So yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay, Emma?
Yeah, I have to go with the Barcelona one, just because I think that's the greatest match in Liverpool's history in my lifetime. So for him to play such a key role in that has to be the one for me. But I'm sat here drinking a cup of tea out of my mug, which has got the sort of the BBC CFAX version of the Champions League final, and I can just see his name there, and I'm thinking that's mad that a player who's come on and scored in the Champions League final, that doesn't even make my number one.
It is indeed the way in which it is. Listen, it is fantastic. Loads of stuff on the Anfield Wrap about Divock today. Do check it all out there all the way through. He's been phenomenal for us. He really has. In the run-up to another Champions League final that Liverpool are going to, Divock scored in this campaign as well. Got one earlier in the season against the AC Milan, a belter too. Coming up, if you listen to this as a podcast, there is Daniel Draper, the director of a film called Manifesto, much of which is filmed in Walton with John Gibbons. That is to come. And also, we have got Camilla from the official Paris Supporters Club to speak to John as well. Loads of fantastic stuff happening in Paris. We'll see it on Friday night. And now we can obviously confirm that there will be a fan park, which will be free for people to enter. We'll be part of that early on in the day, I hasten to add. Just getting everyone in the mood, getting everyone ready for it. There's some brilliant stuff on there. There really is. Loads of big ideas as well. Loads of ambition. So if you're in Paris, do make your way over to that. Anyway, this is the Anfield Wrap, and this is the bit of Tour Live where we go from part 1 all the way through to part 4, and it has happened now. And we are back to talk about the Champions League final. The Champions League final, Adam Smith. It's remarkable. It's 3 and 5 years. We'll get on to talk about them. Real Madrid in a minute or two and their journey to get here, which has certainly, I think, been much more spectacular than ours. It's actually been, if I say relatively straightforward, this isn't me acting as though it's been easy for Liverpool. The group looked nightmarish. They then dealt very, very neatly with Inter Milan, indeed. But ultimately, Liverpool have got to this final. You've been able to see the run of it. And as far as I'm concerned, they walk into it knowing that this competition is a competition that they're now built for beautifully.
Yeah, I think... I thought it was really interesting. I was listening to the most recent Midnight Caller with Rory just this morning, actually, and he said something like, in his head, he doesn't think Real Madrid losing 2-0 to Liverpool is how their story ends, which I thought was totally fair. But at the same time, I thought, but I don't think us losing to Real Madrid is how our story ends for this season. Like, we've been in the Champions League, Liverpool have been relentless. We lost what was it? I think we lost one game, didn't we? And it was not a dead rubber, but we lost it in a way that meant it was irrelevant.
Yeah, Inter Milan.
Yeah, so it was sort of, we lost. That's frustrating, but it didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter, and even if they had somehow taken it to extra time, I still would have thought that we'd have just beaten them. So, it was. It's been an unbelievable campaign from the players who are just sort of it just feels a little bit like they've gone, well, last season we got knocked out by Real Madrid at their training ground. It was offensive the way in which we got knocked out of this last season. Let's make up for it this time, and we'll just absolutely blow everyone away. And that's what they've done. They've just been better than everyone. There's been no point really in which I've thought I just don't fancy us here. Even in the semi-final, where obviously things were looking a little bit harem scarum, I still was like, but these lads just know what they're doing. They just know what they're doing, and this manager won't stand for it. And that's what I think is going to happen in the Champions League final. They're just not going to stand for it.
Ian, they've come through the journey that they've come through, Liverpool, and we now come into this one. And that journey, the 2 finals. That they've got to the Champions League final. We're getting to 2 domestic cup finals. They've got the Champions League final whilst taking the league right the way through until the last day, whilst breaking 90 points in the league. It's the second time Liverpool have broken 90 points in the league and made it to a Champions League final. The level of excellence that demonstrates, I think, is phenomenal. The level of consistency it demonstrates is phenomenal. The key thing for them is to keep that excellence and that consistency up. That's what they're going to have to work on. I think the one thing that I took from my conversation with Rory on Midnight Caller was, I think Liverpool need this game to be a very sane one. The more sanity there is within this football match, the likelier Liverpool are to prevail.
I would agree with that. I also think it's a bit mad how all of a sudden there's a narrative flying around that breaking 90 points is nothing to be kind of proud of if it means you don't win anything. When actually, what it demonstrates is exactly what you just said. It demonstrates excellence, and it demonstrates a consistency that is matched by so few others in terms of going 38 games and being able to break 90 points. That is something to be massively proud of, whether it ends with a trophy or not. And obviously you want it to end with a trophy, and that's what history will remember, the people who win the trophies. But you can't talk about Liverpool breaking 90 points as in it's just the norm, because it isn't the norm. And when you do it alongside picking up 2 domestic trophies and then reaching a Champions League final, it's an unbelievable performance from this Liverpool team and the manager and the players and all the backroom staff. It's one hell of a collective performance. And I think you're right about the game. You don't want it to be insane. I think, that's very much Liverpool of maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when the manager first comes into the club and you've got those 2 or 3 years where games can be a little bit topsy-turvy and there is that chaos that sits in the heart of some of those football matches. You don't want it to be like that. And Real Madrid, you can almost describe it as they fed off some of that chaos. You think about PSG, you think about Chelsea, you think about Man City. There's elements of chaos throughout all of those games. And Real Madrid can probably count themselves a little bit fortunate that they've got to where they are. But listen, that's what sometimes big football clubs with a history in this competition do. We've done it ourselves. You have to ride it sometimes.
Yeah.
And they have got a special relationship with this tournament, as have we. They're going for number 14. So you don't want it to be insane. You want Liverpool to demonstrate control, Neil, and I fully believe they will do.
Talk about them, Emma. They're going for number 14, as Ian says. For some of those players, it's number 5. What was interesting in the semi-final, looking back on it now, the game against Manchester City, the second leg, is that Casemiro, Modric and Kroos, all of whom are part of going for the 5th one in their careers, Real Madrid's 14th. Those footballers are the ones who get subbed in extra time. All of them, none of the 3 of those midfielders finished the game. They've been incredible, incredible careers, but also incredible in this run at times. All 3 of the players that I've just described there, especially Modric from when I've caught him. Casemiro remains terrific at what he does. But there is a thing there, isn't it? These are footballers who, this is a massive game and they'll all find a way to go to the well one more time, don't get me wrong. But these footballers have all been around shipping 4 goals over the course of a game to Manchester City. They've all been around feeling the game sort of wash away from them. Alaba, another footballer in his 30s with a ton of experience. They've lived this season. They've picked a lot of balls out of a lot of nets in this competition, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, just before I answer, I just want to say, this is the Champions League final. It's Real Madrid, it's Liverpool, 2 of the biggest clubs in the world. I'm so excited. I genuinely, I'm so excited. Just want to say that because this is what the Champions League final is. This is, this is it, the ultimate.
It's the what it should be.
100%. But yeah, look, these players, you're right. They have picked the ball out of the net. They've had to go through those big moments. And actually, I think, out of everyone, it's probably the younger players which seem to have dragged them over the line a little bit in recent times. You look at the knockout stages and the likes of, Camavinga, Vinicius, Rodrigo. They've been players that have really stood out. Obviously, Benzema, with the exception, he's one of those that's going for a 5th with Real Madrid. But it's actually, I think it's the younger players which really have pulled them over the line. I think that the key for Liverpool is recognising that, yes, they've got those big players, the Modric's that have got those moments of quality. But that's why you make it a game which is sane. You take away the ability for them to turn it into chaos by producing those 1 moments, those 2 moments. Because, a side like Liverpool, they're the ones who have moments in the Champions League. It's Liverpool's thing. So, if you take that scenario out of it and just play the best football, then Liverpool are the best football team out there. I don't think anyone can deny it, that out of everyone left in the competition, Liverpool are the best side. So if they play their game, then these big players, those moments won't come.
Issam Kayasi's corrected me, which is absolutely fine. I hasten to add, Kroos and Casemiro weren't involved in 2014. Of course they weren't. Very, very valid points indeed. Real Madrid have conceded, and I'll say it again, they've conceded 4 to Manchester City in a one-off game, 3 to Chelsea in a one-off game. That second Chelsea game was also in Real Madrid's own ground. Worth pointing that out as well. Paris Saint-Germain should have done better against them over the course of the competition. I'll come back to you on it, Emma. There's a lot of focus. There's been a good piece written by Michael Cox for The Athletic around the battle battle between Vinicius and Trent Alexander-Arnold. There are always pieces to be written about a battle between an attacking player and Trent Alexander-Arnold. For me, if I'm looking at this game, if there's an area I'm looking at Real Madrid's right back. I'm looking at Carvajal up against Diaz. I'm looking at the fact there's a reason why they've shipped 3 to Chelsea, a reason why they shipped 4 to Manchester City in one-off games. And one of those reasons for me is that I'm not convinced by either centre-half of the 3 options that he's got. I'm not convinced as centre-halves. I'm not convinced by the right back, and the left back looks like a good player, but I'm not entirely convinced by the right back. Never have been, but also he is now getting on and he's played a hell of a lot of football in his career. There will always be focus pieces, will always be written in England, focusing on Liverpool and framing Liverpool's weaknesses first. But for me, Real Madrid's weaknesses, those that hang there across that back line, they are the ones that Liverpool should be focused on.
Yeah, and the midfielders that you mentioned before, the ones that have, that are aging a little bit, because they're the ones providing that protection for that back four. And you could argue that, yes, their qualities lie, Casemiro probably an exception, but their qualities lie in those moments of quality at the other end. So, yeah, I think there's definitely ways to get at Real Madrid. And I think it's interesting when people make up these comparisons of, like you say, Trent against whoever it is. Liverpool don't defend as a back four. They never have, and they never will do under Jurgen Klopp. That's very, 2014, 2013. They defend from the front, and actually, everyone knows that Liverpool's press is so important. If they get the press right, which is why I think Roberto Firmino might start, by the way. If they get that press right, they don't need to worry about, the likes of Vinicius against Trent, because there should never be a scenario, if all goes to plan, where it's Trent against Vinicius. That's not the way that Liverpool play. And I think that's perhaps the difference, is that actually with Real Madrid, yes, they're not the same. They're not, just a pure back four or back three, whatever they choose to line up on the night. They are a bit more man on man as to what Liverpool might be. And I think that is down to the fact that they haven't got midfielders who can press relentlessly from, 90, 120 minutes, whatever it is, because they haven't got 3 box-to-box midfielders. You look at, yes, I know Fabinho and Thiago are obviously going to be doubts for the final, but if you look at Fabinho, Thiago and Henderson ordinarily for Liverpool, all 3 of them have got the ability to play box-to-box if needs be. So if the game does turn into chaos, they can do that, and they can provide that extra cover for Liverpool's back four, which Real Madrid probably don't have. So, I think if Liverpool get their press right and they get it right from the front, there's just no way, in my eyes, I can see Real Madrid being able to get in at Liverpool's back four. So, I think get Bobby Firmino pressing from the front, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how they cope with that.
The importance of Liverpool turning them round, Ian, but the other thing is take the chances. It's a very, very strange thing to say. City score 5 against them across the 2 games, and they arguably could do with being a bit more clinical. It shouldn't work like that. That's where it'll end up for this Liverpool side. They've got to take the chances, because I think that there's every chance they create a number of them, and even that they create a number of them quite early in the game.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Neil. I think, given what we've seen of Real Madrid this season, even if you are out in front, there is that element of they could do something spectacular. And I think you've got to put them to bed when those chances do arise. And I think the other thing is, and this is something City didn't really do, when you are in front, game intelligence. You've got to take those moments where, and it might be that you go down and just grab a couple of minutes and take the sting out of things if that tide does suddenly turn for 10 or 15 minutes. Because let's be honest, Liverpool are a better team, but we can't sit here and say that Real Madrid have got no chance. They are
got a massive chance. They've got a massive chance, Ian.
They're steeped in history, which means something in this competition. But when you couple that with quality, and they have got quality, and I do take the point around, there's some aging legs in the middle of the park, and whether it's 4-2-3-1 for Real Madrid, or whether it's more of a 4-3-3, you can shift it depending on how you want to kind of, put the players on a kind of piece of paper when you're lining them up, so to speak. They've got quality, and they've got quality from the bench. So you see that when Camavinga comes on against Man City, and all of a sudden there's pace and there's legs, and he'll want to play
as well.
Absolutely. So if you are tiring and it does start to go the distance, they have got those players from the bench who can stretch you and cause you problems. I think that's why it's really important. And of course, before we started this show, that Fabinho's training today, and he's taking part in a small-sided game. That's massive, because without Thiago, you are looking at the balance of Liverpool's midfield without those 2 players, and just saying, I don't know, I'm not quite convinced. All the players who would play, and you imagine it would have been Henderson, Keita and Milner if Thiago and Fabinho aren't available. And Thiago does look unlikely now. But whilst they're all good players, I'm not convinced that's a great balance in terms of the midfield. And whilst James Milner is and has been a phenomenal footballer for this club, I don't particularly want to see him starting Champions League finals at 36. And yes, I know Modric is 36 and he'll probably be starting one, but they are two very different players that play in different systems. So it's important Fabinho plays because I think that does give us the right balance. And I think even without Thiago, Keita coming in with Henderson, that feels okay to me. But yeah, Neil, they've got to put them to the sword when those opportunities arise, and they've got the players to do it. And I take Emma's point about Firmino, but I wouldn't be starting him. He hasn't really looked fit to me since he's come back. You know, you see his cameo the other day, and he's struggling to find the shirt, to be honest. And listen, he'll train this week and all that. I get it, but I'd be starting Salah, Mane, and Luis Diaz. For me, there's no debate on the front three as far as I'm concerned. No, others will have a different view, but that's what I'd be going with. And then, you know, the back four, well, for me, it's Joe Matip alongside Virgil van Dijk. I think experience is everything in some of these football matches. So, yeah, that's what I'd be doing.
Adam, Thiago is not ruled out by the manager today. He's had the opportunity to rule him out. He's chosen not to. He says that he's got a chance. He's currently in the gym, according to Neil Jones, doing some work with the physio at the training facility there from a Liverpool point of view. Fabinho was saying he will be ready. He will be back for us in this one. I think the manager does have questions, and I think that those questions he will be, I think, going into them in more depth than you think. Emma's Firmino suggestion that I think the manager will be thinking long and hard about it, but I'd sort of agree in the final analysis he may well back Ian. I think not so much around the idea of what he wants from the left-hand side, but more because I think he'll be absolutely desperate to keep Mane on the pitch at number 9. Like, I think that he'll feel that's his way home. I think at the minute Mane, you know, the best finisher in world football at the moment, at the very highest level, looks as though it's one of Mane, Son, and Benzema in terms of where everyone's currently at in front of goal. I'd love Mohamed Salah to prove me wrong on Saturday and give it the big one. But, you know, after the last sort of 3 months or so, you would say those three have been the defining sort of finishers of most of the football. And Lewandowski, obviously, of all the football that you've caught, they've been the ones that have absolutely stuck out. I think he'll be desperate to have Sadio Mane play through the middle of the pitch.
Yeah, and I don't see a world in which that doesn't happen unless he's injured, to be honest. I think there are loads of question marks that he'll have. I think that, but I do think that Salah and Mane will be pretty much nailed on. Obviously, the goalkeeper will be nailed on. Van Dijk will be nailed on, provided he's fit, which we assume he is because he was on the bench. You know, but I think Mane in particular is one where the manager won't have any messing around, because he's just adapted so brilliantly to that role, and just, you know, he knows what he's doing, and I think it's. I think the Firmino one's really interesting because I thought he looked great against Southampton. I was like, oh hello, this is really Firmino at his best here. He looks so bright, pressing all the time, passing brilliantly, and then he absolutely was awful when he came on the other day against Wolves. But when he was on the pitch, we scored. So, you know, there's always that kind of debate, isn't there, around it? Because he is the player that just offers you so much more than goal scoring and passing and that sort of thing, you know, and the pressing is important. And I think one of the key things will be that our back line needs to be on it, because the likes of Vinicius terrify me in terms of his pace. And if they can get that ball behind the back line right, then that's where they'll cause us problems. But one area I don't think the manager will be spending more than 5 seconds thinking about is whether Sadio Mane starts up front. I just think it's locked in.
On Emma, the idea of who does it centre half, Ian went for Matip before. I felt that was a closer conversation before Sunday. I think Konate didn't look what he has looked in the past. I think Jimenez does a really good job against him. But the thing to point out is he doesn't have Virgil van Dijk there as well. It felt like the two of them could even have done with the opposite challenge over the course of the game. Which one do you think he'll do?
Yeah, for me, it's a no-brainer. I start Matip, and that's just because I think he's had a little bit more time with Van Dijk to work on that high line. And yeah, I completely agree with Adam. I think Vinicius and, you know, even Rodrigo, their pace, I'd be concerned about that. So I'd want to make sure that defence is properly organised. And, you know, I think Konate has made massive strides, certainly in the second half of the season. But yeah, I just feel a little bit more comfortable with Matip and Van Dijk. I just think they're a bit better rehearsed in that. And by the way, Van Dijk, I'm pretty sure he is 100% fit. But even if he's not, I don't care if he's 60% fit. He starts for me. It's an absolute no-brainer.
Adam, are you also very much in Matip's corner on this?
So I would have said Konate before the game against Wolves. I agree with you that he was terrorised. But again, the only thing I think is that his recovery pace is better than Matip's, and that might be important. So that's I think the manager really will be going, I don't know. But to be honest, whichever back four I see, I'm not going to be going, oh my God, what's he picked that for? Like that's what they've done. You know, if you can compare and contrast to last season where, like, you know, one of us could have got a start, I think he's really got to the point where he's like, these lads are brilliant and I'm fine with any of them. And that's, you know, as long as Van Dijk's there, I should add as the caveat, that's the key one for me. As long as Van Dijk's there, I'll be absolutely fine whoever the manager picks. But I think I might lean towards Konate because of the recovery pace.
I think, I mean, there's no real bad kind of outcome here. I think, you know, you can look at that game against Wolves and it wasn't Konate's kind of finest performance. I think it's fair to say. I think Matip at times as well looked a little bit shaky in that game. And I think Wolves do cause Liverpool one or two problems. But I think over the course of his career so far, Konate has been pretty outstanding. I think it's fair to say. And what he does offer, and I know Joel's popped up with a goal here and there as well, but he does offer that aerial threat as well. So I think there's maybe a little bit of trade-off there. If you do see Konate start, yes, he brings the pace as well, and that could be important. But also that aerial threat from Liverpool's own set pieces is absolutely massive, and it has been this season already. So if it ends up being Konate, I don't think anyone's sitting there thinking, oh my God, because he's already proven this season. He looks like one hell of an addition. I'd just lean towards Matip because of the experience. And I think in Champions League finals, sometimes that can mean an awful lot. It could be the difference sometimes. So that's where I'd go.
Emma's excited, very excited indeed. It's going to be fabulous on Saturday night, Emma. It's a wonderful end to what's been a brilliant season. Are Liverpool going to win?
I think so. I can't see them not picking up one of the big two trophies. And obviously, you know, with the Premier League going, I think the players will be not devastated to lose that at all. Actually, I think it'll be the opposite. I think they'll be so spurred on to go and win this Champions League. I just can't see Liverpool not winning it. But as we've said, you know, it's not going to be easy, and I think it's going to be a horrible watch for every single Liverpool fan out there. I genuinely think it will be. But yeah, Liverpool to win for me.
Adam?
Yeah, I think the one thing that concerns me a little bit is Real Madrid's record against us under the manager. But I think as we saw with United, it sort of gets to the point where the manager goes, right, I get how to do this now. And then once he's figured it out, he's just figured it out. And so I think Real Madrid are brilliant, and I will definitely, you know, if I were to place a bet, I'd definitely be going for both teams to score. But I think we're going to score more than them, and I think that we're going to do it in a way that means that we all get to celebrate them on Sunday at the parade. The one thing I will say, I want to be on record as saying on this here esteemed podcast, is to say that even if we don't, this has still been a phenomenal season for Liverpool. And the idea that you know, because we didn't win the quadruple, a double should somehow be laughed at or mocked is ludicrous. Liverpool are a phenomenal football team. They've shown that this season, and I think they're going to win a treble to prove it.
Ian?
I think they'll do it. I think it'll end up being 3-1 or something like that. I can see, you know, maybe two clear goals in it for Liverpool, but I do think there'll be times in the game where it maybe does get a little bit uncomfortable. But I said after the game of the weekend, I think they'll use some of that hurt, and there's no doubt, you could tell there was a number of players there were struggling with it, and obviously, you know, there was a chance to do something absolutely spectacular, never been kind of done before. But as Adam said, to go and do a treble, to go win 3 cups is just, it'll still go down, and it will be one of the greatest seasons in the club's history. If you win a European Cup, that is one of the greatest seasons in your club's history. If you go and add another 2 trophies as well, which they've done with the domestic cups, then my God, we are talking about one hell of a season. And I think just because you've been hurt at the weekend does not give you the divine right to then go win the big one the week after. But I do think they'll use it. I do think it is arguably the most hungriest group of players I've ever seen. play for the football club. They look incredibly focused. They look incredibly hungry. That's very much coming from the manager. You can see it in his kind of tone, I suppose, after the game at the weekend. He was devastated, of course he was, but doesn't really show that too much. It's all about what comes next, and what comes next is a huge challenge, but it's one I think they're capable of doing. So yeah, 3-1 to Liverpool.
We are privileged to get this many Champions Leagues in a 5-year spell, to get this many Champions League finals in a lifetime. That our supporters, the vast majority of football supporters, will never see their team play one Champions League final. The city of Manchester has barely seen Manchester play a Champions League final. The city of London has barely seen London play a Champions League final. Liverpool are 3 in 5 years. This will be their 10th through the existence of the football club. It has been a pleasure today with Adam Smith, with Ian Ryan, with Emma Sanders. Champions League finals do not come along very often at all. Enjoy the journey with the Anfield Wrap. Download the app, get stuck into all the bits and pieces. But whatever you're doing over the weekend, whatever you're doing on Saturday, you make sure it's special.